Welcome back to Blackthornprod. I'm Noah, and today let's play around with gravity. We'll start by giving the player the power to switch gravity, in other words, the ability to walk and jump on ground and ceiling, and then have a look at how this can be expanded so the player can literally mess around with the gravity's direction. So whether you're interested in creating a game around this fascinating mechanic, or are simply curious to learn some juicy Unity physics, this video will have you covered. With that said, let's jump right in. So I have a simple Unity scene set up with a little character that can for now move left and right as well as jump. If you're not sure how to make a simple 2D platformer controller, I highly recommend you check out this little tutorial I did, which brings you through the process step by step. Other than the platformer controller, this player has a 2D box collider and a 2D rigid body set to dynamic. A dynamic rigid body is basically affected by gravity and external forces. It also lets our player jump in the air and fall back down. The box collider makes sure our player doesn't just fall through the ground and shoot through walls. Obviously, these platforms also have a 2D box collider to catch our hopping player. Now that's all clear, let's give our player the power to switch gravity. So I'll make a new C# script called switch gravity, drag and drop it onto my player character, and open up. And you'll be surprised to see how easy this actually is. So I'll create a private variable of type rigidbody2D called RB, and set that equal to the 2D rigid body component attached to my player. In my update function, I'll now create an if statement which will check when I press the space bar on my keyboard. Now of course you can change this key to whatever you like. For example, if you would rather your player switch gravity with the down arrow, you can do so. I'll stick with space, and inside this statement I'll type rb.gravityscale times equals -1. And there we go. So say our gravity is equal to 1, which obviously gets our player falling to the ground. We can then hit space and gravity will be equal to -1. So our player will fall to the ceiling, if that makes any sense. When he's on the ceiling, however, with a gravity of -1 and we hit space, -1 multiplied by -1 equals 1, and so our player will fall to the ground. Let's try this out in Unity, and you should see that things are working nicely. Now of course, if you would like your character falling faster, you can increase this gravity value, and you guessed it, simply decrease gravity for a more floaty, slow result. However, as you can see, our player looks a little silly with his head glued to the ceiling. On top of that, I can no longer jump because my ground check is in midair. For more info on ground check, take a look at the easy peasy tutorial linked above. So what we must do is simply rotate the character of 180 degrees on the Z axis, so his feet touch the ceiling. Alright, back in my scripting editor, I'll create a private bool variable called top. I'll then create a function named rotation, and inside it make an if statement. So if my top variable is equal to false, in other words if I'm on the ground, I would like my character to rotate of 180 degrees on the Z axis, so he has his feet touching the ceiling. I'll do so by typing transform.eulerangles equals new vector3, and in the parentheses I'll type in the appropriate rotation values. However, if I'm on the ceiling, I'll zero out my character's rotation. I'll also get my top bool variable to be equal to the opposite of its current value. So if it was equal to false, once this function runs, it will be equal to true, and vice versa. Oh, and also make sure to type this line of code well under the if statement. And lastly, I'll call this function as soon as I hit the space bar. Alright, let's test this out, and indeed, our character rotates nicely. However, you may notice that the character isn't flipping properly due to the new rotation. An easy fix to this is grabbing a reference to the player controller and setting facing right equal to not facing right when my rotation function is run. That should fix the issue. And that's about it. You now have a switching gravity player character. Let me now show you how we can change the direction of our gravity. For example, let's get the gravity pushing this simple white box with a 2D rigid body and a 2D box collider down to this wall, which will act in fact as our ground. The way we do this is by heading over to Edit, Project Settings, Physics 2D, and you'll see right at the top the gravity settings. It's here that we can set up our default game gravity. As you can see, gravity is for now pushing the player down in the Y direction. We can change this by typing, for example, minus 9.81 in the X and 0 for the Y, and hitting play. All will work really smoothly. We can also easily change our gravity's direction via scripts. So let's create a new script called gravity swap and open that up. In my start function, I'll now create an if statement checking whether or not I hit the left arrow. If I do, let's get the gravity pulling my box to the left. So I'll type physics 2d.gravity equal to new vector 2 and simply type 9.81 for X and 0 for Y to get a left direction gravity. If I want my classic downwards gravity, I can wait until the player hits the down arrow, and when he does so, change my gravity to 0 in the X and minus 9.81 for the Y. I'll now go ahead and give my player the ability to swap gravity in the two other directions. Okay, I'll drag and drop this script onto my box and have fun testing it all out. And that marks the end of the video. I hope you found it of interest and learned something new. Remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you enjoy the content and want to get notified of new videos released. With that said, plenty of exciting game creation tutorials and videos are coming up here at Blackthornprod. So stay tuned, have a great day, thanks so much for watching, cheers!